Hello and welcome to Affinity. We're going to look at the Lighten Blend mode and things that you can do with it, so several examples. So let's start off, we'll go to the layer here and hit Ctrl J to duplicate it, and then we'll go to the blend mode and set it to lighten. Nothing's happening here because both the same, so it doesn't know which one to choose, so it chooses, everything's lighter, so there's nothing happening. So you need to change this in some way to make it happen. One way to do that is if I go to the Gaussian blur, and just to show the full effect, I can turn this right up, and you see you created a glow. So, and then you can bring it down to whatever you want it to be. So that's one thing you can do. Something else you can do, let's put on some text, and I'll draw something here, and you can pick a color up there. And if I say going for a walk, there we go, and I can move this around the place and nothing changes. If I change the blend mode of this to lighten, it's going to pick the lightest between the text and the background it's over. So up in the sky, it's going to pull through, the sky is going to come through. Down here, clearly the text is the same. Or I put it in between, you're going to get a bit of a overlap effect. So that's another one. Third one, curves. If I go to the curves here, and normally if I pull this up, it gets lighter, down it gets darker. But if I, on the curves here, I can use actually down here, the blend mode here, set this to lighten. Now when I pull it up, it gets lighter as before, but when I pull it down, nothing changes. And that's because it's using the lighter version, which is the original, and so nothing gets darkened. Which I can use this, so I could turn this up here to lighten and then pull this down, so this is below the red line, and this area here then is not going to be affected. So I've now got just this area being lightened. So that's a way of just controlling how you lighten to just something like the shadows, or you can do any other area. Just above the line it's going to lighten, below it's not. So third area, let's put on a fill layer. So I'm going to go to layer, new fill layer. And this is white, it's set up here, but let's take the blend mode here to lighten. And it stays white because white is lighter than everything else. If I go down here, by the way, a useful thing to here is to go to the HSL sliders, because they're kind of handy for some of the things it can do. So for example, I can change whether it's black or white by changing this. As I move this down, at the other end it's black and everything's lighter than black, so nothing shows. And as I bring it up, you get an effect. So there, around about 50%, you can see the sky is mostly greater than 50% lightness, and below is going to be darker than it. But I can also do some interesting effects now. So I can start changing the hue here. If I move this up, then nothing's happening. It's because the saturation is down on grey. Let's turn that up. You can turn that to wherever you want. And now I can change the hue underneath here on this layer. But that means I can also, because it's only going to this bit down here, when I take this, I can actually do something like change the opacity. And now I got to tint. So there I'm tinting just the areas that are darker in there. And with this again, I can then control that with how much I do with these here and play around to get the effect that you want. So what else can I do with this? Well, actually, that's very low, wasn't it? If I put this back up here, come up to this and say, I'm going to go to blue, because what it affects here is that you can see it affects the shadows more, and that's because the shadows are low, so it's lots to lighten up. Whereas when you have the light areas, there's not much to lighten, so it's going to have a bigger effect on the shadow areas. And so the darker it is, the more. That makes you start thinking, what about dual toning? So I can take this, I can turn it down, I can use this as well. So I can just turn this down as well. That's another way of doing it. So I've got a blue tint here. But then you can start using, you can do this in many different ways, of using both the Lighten Blend and the Darken Blend. So if I hit Ctrl J to duplicate that layer there, then go up to here and pick, say, a yellow color, and make this a Darken Blend mode, So this then applies more to the lighter areas. What I've got is a split toning effect, which is quite another interesting thing you can do. And we'll do one more, and I'm going to go here to the stock pictures, and if you search on face, here's one here. Let's just drag that on to this. It's going to be pretty big. So I'm just going to get to the move tool, then I can change it. There we go. I can drag this down here. I'm going to put that just up there. Control 0 to get fill screen again. And if I put this to Lighten Blend Mode now, so normal down to lighten, the black areas disappear because they're the darker, and you've got this kind of ghostly image up here. But also, interestingly, note this is now in colour, whereas before it was black and white. And what's happening is because it goes by channel, red, green and blue, it's picking up which of these is the lighter one. So this is something you've got to watch for when you're doing this. In this case, it looks pretty good because it's overlaying it on top of blue, which reverses to like yellow, which then looks okay as a kind of an effect. But if you brought this down over the land, you'd get this because it is now going just the lighter one, which is the picture here. But you can have kind of ghostly face in the sky. Anyway, that's it. That's just a few of the things you can do with the Lighten Blend Mode. Thank you very much.